everyone. What is up? Thank you all for joining us today. Hold on one second here. Have to turn that down a little bit. Learning experience. We haven't done a podcast in so long, and very happy to be getting it done today. It's been far too long. Joined by the one and only GGA Tommy Wafflez,
How's it
who
going, everyone?
is taking a break from his many other things that he has going on. And Tom, thank you so much for, as always, getting this all set up for everybody to enjoy. We've had people asking for the longest time. I already see people in the stream chat saying they have questions. Old Master and Iron Gorilla, Crackerjack, Outrunners 33, Tracy, Sean Elias, Paul H, what is up? Vinny, and Bad News to Cruz. Paul asking, what is this? This is the Galloping Ghost podcast, the return. It has been just a bit. Wafflez, how long has it been since we've done a podcast?
The exact date, I believe, was March 3rd of 2021.
That is
Sounds
a
about
bit.
right?
That I don't remember it. I know we've done them, but it's we're here. We've had people asking and looking for more ways to get connected with everybody, and always a fun way to kind of recap everything that's going on. We have so much stuff going on behind the scenes. We talk about it very briefly on Monday Mystery, just because so many people are there just to see the Monday game, and we have to move that show along pretty quick. So, I get if you're in the stream chats, I know we're streaming on Twitch. Are we on Facebook too today?
We are live on Facebook.
All right. I don't know if I am seeing the live stream on Facebook. Oh, there it is. Hopefully, I'll be able to see some of those questions in there too.
Yeah.
So feel free to, or Wafflez, throw those out if people are asking questions over there. I see Bad News to Cruz. I have questions. Throw one out. What's your first question, man?
Bad
I want
ones
to know if you are going to do.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
What's that?
All you. Go ahead.
Bad News to Cruz wanting to know about the ghosts that are hanging up at the counter at the arcade. They all say no gum, and we keep adding more and more and more. That we picked up right before the opening of the arcade, or actually slightly after. Opened up on August 13th. The first Halloween that rolled around, we had we were setting up, putting up some decorations, went out to probably just a Spirit Halloween store and picked up some stuff to hang up around the arcade, and just thought it was a cool thing. Was driving around one night and happened to notice a house. This is years later. Happened to notice a house that had one of our neighbors, and I just thought, oh, that would be pretty cool to have a second one, and went up and knocked on the door, and they were like, oh, it's the guy from the arcade. What do you want? And I was like, oh, I'm wondering if I could buy your Halloween decoration. And they were gracious enough to sell it to us, and took some day passes to the arcade. And now it's just kind of become a thing. I drive around every Halloween and look for them and hassle people and see if they'll sell them. So it's kind of been an ongoing tradition. I think we're just under. I think we're at 61 of them now. So they just keep going up to the arcade. I occasionally find them on eBay and stuff, but the ones that are special are from driving around, and just cool to see them out and about when they haven't been made in for so long. See, Vinny saying streaming from the guitar set. Yeah, pretty much. We've got been doing a lot of music work on Dark Presence lately. getting here early and trying to finish that up before it's holding up the game any further. So, Bullmaster asking, what is the latest on the expansion? So, we are finishing up. Canton has become a monstrosity of an expansion, just years underway working on that expansion. And we have basically, we're splitting the expansion up into two parts. The HVAC has become an interesting situation in there, trying to use this expansion to kind of cool off our shmups room as well. We've been able to get that set up to where it is gonna work, but we're having to split the front half and the back half. We've got the front half will be done much sooner, and talking to our construction guys, and they have a project or two ahead of it, and then that'll be the main focus. So after we had purchased the buildings, that is caused some interesting scenarios to be going on, and we are working on it very quickly to get it open. We've basically already got the front half filled up, and it's we need to get it done. So very excited for it. We know everybody else is excited for it too. We don't have an official date, but as soon as we do, we will be letting everybody know on the Monday Mystery Game Show. And hopefully it won't be too much longer. We appreciate everybody being so patient, and it's coming. It's coming. It's going to be awesome. Already recognizing that we're going to far exceed the room that is just what is the Canton expansion. Already have been in talks with the town about doing a second and third floor. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on construction-wise. Pinball Expo just behind us. We've had everybody that was there was asking us about, they want more pinball. They want that to grow and be bigger. And we're working on all of it. We've got a lot of big plans. The arcade, pinball, every Galloping Ghost entity is trying to grow. And there's only so many hours in the day and so many, you can only do so much at once.
Dude, those pinball people, they're crazy. I was so impressed at all the events, and to be honest, just like not even at Pinball Expo, but just on a weekly basis, how many tournaments are going on just in the Midwest area. Like it's a very, very active tournament scene, and obviously we definitely are kind of in tune with the competitive side of arcade gaming. And that's obviously spilled over to the pinball side, so it's just really, really cool. Pinball Expo obviously was exponentially more events and players coming in from all over the place to compete, and some of it spilled over to the arcade. You know, they were over there to mainly check out the arcade because, you know, breath of fresh air, I guess, because being surrounded by pinball all day. But it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah, the pinball crowd, very different and very, like, I love pinball. Obviously, the video side is a much bigger thing to me, but absolutely love pinball. Definitely want to keep growing it. We know with the expansion of a second and third floor, we've been talking about doing a console and LAN center for a long time. And that's something we very much want to get to as well. The second and third floor would allow us to do so much, not only to continue to grow the largest collection of arcade games anywhere in the world. See Tracy mentioning that the arcade club has 4 floors. We do it in one. It's 954 games, no duplicates. Well, there's Sinistar's a duplicate, and the Grid has a duplicate. Everything else unique. And once we have 3 floors, it's going to be an absolute madhouse of what the arcade is. And like, even if you had half of the arcade doubled, like, you're talking just 1,500 games at that point. Like, it's going to be crazy, let alone with if we expect, depending on how we do it, we'll have so much more room with the second and third floor just because of we don't have to have the we can design it how we wanted instead of working with what's already existing. So it'll be a lot more open, a lot more room for more games. So I think even with half the space without all the extra walls, we'd probably be able to get another 700 games up there. Leaving the entire floor empty for a console and LAN center and pinball and the much we've been talking about doing a video game and an arcade and video game museum because we have so many collectible, just the history of arcade gaming. We've received so many things from so many industry people over the last 13 years that be great to display it all properly in a protected environment, share it all with people. They can see stuff like, even from here, I can see code books for the original Rampage that Jeff Nauman did. And RC Squared, I see RC Squared basic Codalith marquees, just the original hand-drawn marquees and stuff. There's so much stuff just sitting in this office alone that should be on display for people to enjoy. So we've got so much coming up. It's going to be amazing. It's again always the time thing, as well as that expansion is going to be millions. It's just millions of dollars to do that massive expansion. So we got to figure all that out, and it's people haven't even begun to see what we're trying to accomplish here. So it's quite the undertaking.
Just want to do a quick shout out to some of the Facebook guys. We got Dan Icavelli in the chat. We are reading the chats, guys, by the way, so definitely.
Dan Icavelli, he's one of our lifetime members.
There it is. Garo Gala, Kyle Diaz, Jonathan Zachary. What's up, guys? Any questions, shoot them our way. You know, we'll try to answer as many as we can, but there are a couple things I think we did want to. I think phone's going off or something.
No, that's we have a lot of building construction going on. They're actually working on some brickwork outside on literally on this wall over here. So you'll hear some of that from time to time. It's only impossibly distracting, but
it's actually good news for everyone because that just means we're closer to Canton, right? It's just like everything. It's all coming together.
So our contractor literally, after we've purchased these buildings, there's so much to do on them that they're expanding. So it's good for the economy. It's good for everything. Everything just growing along at massive rates because of Galloping and all its things needing to get stuff done. So crazy times here at Galloping Ghost for sure.
Let's see. Maybe answer a couple of questions, and then we do have one thing we did want to talk about. I got queued up for us here. Any hints on the 1000 Arcade Mystery Release weekend events from Todd Freeman?
Todd, what is up, man? So we've had people trying to plan for it. We've been trying to figure out when it's going to be. We're 45 weeks away now. Looking at it, like we've got August 13th, 2024. It's right around then. We'd have to release a couple of double machines on a Monday over, I think, like 3 or 4. But we could do that. We could line it up with the anniversary. So maybe around August 12th, that could be the 1000th machine.
That'd be pretty crazy. But any ideas? I guess it's a mystery, man. You're gonna have to use your imagination.
We've put out so many crazy games. We put out R360. We've been putting out Gottlieb prototypes. We had our Screw Loose and Horizontal Cuber Cubes. We've been just putting out rare, even more rare stuff after all this time. No slowing down in any of it. So it's tough. We want to put out something that's really jaw-dropping, but there's a big difference between jaw-dropping to like the super collectors and the players, and it's hard something to find that'll satiate and satisfy everybody. So we're working on it. I don't even know if we have the game in the vaults yet for number 1000. There's some great stuff, but that's a pretty special game. We've had a lot of people saying it's going to be Dark Presence. Who knows? Who knows? It would be fitting, but...
Rehab's actually got a good question. He's wondering about the Orade Refresh and the current development on that.
So we have been working so diligently on the Orade relaunch and so excited for it. We have had... It's been the interesting thing. You know, we have never had the best of luck with our web design teams. We spent years working with one company, and then they walked away from it. Every time you talk to a programmer, they want to start everything fresh. They don't want to jump into somebody else's work. So the foundation of what Orade is pretty elaborate, and you know, huge props to David Hernley, that was the original creator of Orade. He did an amazing job, and it really hits all the right buttons. But there's so much more that we want to add to it. So we have to kind of rebuild this site, make all the old antiquated data transfer over, and then add all of the new features. And very much so, like, I don't think scoring has ever been done as deep as we're looking at it. We want to add so many features. Like in this, you can do all sorts of comparisons. You can compare against other arcades. You can line up what games one arcade has to another arcade. You can line up a player to another player, compare all their scores, see what one player has played and what another player hasn't played. So there's a lot of new functionality that we're introducing within this iteration of Orade, and it has just been a tremendous amount of work. And aside of all those features, we're really looking at like the integrity of what a scoring house should be. We want to be able to be very inclusive on scores. We want more places to be putting in and urging their players to get into scoring. But we have to have this level of integrity to it where we have to know that the referees know what they're doing with the dip switches. We need to be able to properly verify every score. So it's a lot to put on the people that are going to be using Orade. And we're coming up with incentives. One of our best incentives that has really kind of brought up a lot of interest within the arcades that we're talking to is a Orade championship belt for every location. That is, you got to have at least 10 arcade machines. You got to have at least 10 players that are putting in scores, and each of those 10 players has to have 10 scores. So once you meet those criteria, then you can qualify to get one of the Orade belts. And the goal will be to create a champion at each arcade and then be able to have those champions come to tournaments and compete against each other. So we're really excited for that. But again, getting back to the gaming integrity, you know, in really scrutinizing gaming, you see games like Donkey Kong have so many criterias, like it has to be an original board, it has to be a Sanyo monitor, it has to be the original stick. And same thing with Galaga. The players really hold those games to the highest of standards. Can't be a conversion cabinet. It can't be so many of these other things. That's very, very game specific. But those specific things do lend to the playability of the games. You look at like how quick you can hit a leaf switch versus a cherry micro switch versus how many presses you can get on a Sanwa switch. So if you look at a game like track and field where you can just plink sandwap buttons, you would easily get a faster score than, or a better time or score than using leaf switches. It's just the mechanics of the hardware. And that's not really something that any scoring house has really scrutinized over the years, except for the very few select games that the players are just the best and people really hold them up to a different standard. So that's all stuff that we want to kind of integrate into it. And even stuff like monitor size and that all kind of plays in. We had recently changed Splatterhouse to be a 25-inch monitor down to a 19-inch monitor, and an IL stick down to an Atari stick. So like those changes really affect the game. It plays very different. They might not be a limiting factor, but it is interest. It would. It's definitely something that I feel needs to be tracked and kind of documented when putting in a score. And there might be some places, like some arcades are just trying to get into scoring and they don't really have the same depth of knowledge that places like us or Underground Retrocade or the places that are really into setting scores. So we have to be inclusive, but keep all this data in place. So it poses a lot of challenges. And it's one of the big things that has kind of added to the relaunch of Orcade taking so long. There's just so many things that we're adding to it. Uh, it's just a long list. So the site is going to be massive. That's not even covering stuff like how we're going to be handling pinball scores, where even the best of pinball locations don't track all the data that I feel should be tracked. Like, what's the pitch of the machine? When was it? When was the last time it was clean? When, like, you've got to have all the switches checked and everything has to work right. Otherwise, you're getting these weird erroneous scores that don't mean anything.
Yeah, pinball is like super. There's so much nuance to those scores and stuff. Like, you could score differently for anyone that doesn't really understand like how crazy the scoring for that type of stuff goes. Like, you can score differently at Galloping Ghost Pinball than you can at Galloping Ghost Arcade, just because of like the floor that it's being set on or something like that. So it's the environment affects the movement of the ball, and it gets pretty crazy.
Definitely a lot to it, like how tight the tilts are set. There's so many nuances, and there's never been like a standardization as big as scoring and pinball is. There's all sorts of online trackers and stuff, but there's nothing really to normalize it. Like on the video game side, there's at least the dip switches, but that's really the extent of it. And we really want to take this as far as it's ever been taken and bring a lot of new information and a lot of giving people more to think about when they're setting scores, and make sure that anything that we do through Galloping Ghost and Orcade, we want everybody to be like, no, that's the most legit scores. This place is crazy about making sure that their scores are accurate and full transparency on all the scores. And there's just a lot of layers to it. We're trying to cover them all, and it's just a tremendous amount of work without even getting into like the new token system that's going to be coming up. So I think that is going to be such a key factor in getting so many of the old players, if they're still interested and want to have that same level of greatness within the scoring community. The new token system is going to change everything. Games that had the most players are definitely weighted very differently. Like a game like Pole Position would have hundreds of tokens behind it, giving it so much more weight than like a cave shmup, which the skill level is so different from game to game. We want to kind of normalize all of that to where there's not games that are just more token valuable. So I think we've come up with a great system. GGA Jeremiah put a lot of time and effort coming up with that
The
equation
formula
of how
or the
the
equation,
formula
yeah.
of how it's going to work. So excited for that. I'm excited to see how the players react to that when that comes up.
Let's do one more question and then maybe get into a couple things we wanted to go over. I guess the goal of this podcast is to, I guess first and foremost, do the podcast, and then maybe go over a quick recap of what we've been doing, talk some games, and maybe you guys already kind of got maybe a possible glimpse into the future with some Orcade talk and talk of game number 1,000, but. This might be a good question to leeway into what the first topic Doc wanted to kind of glance over, at least what we had planned. So Lava Being asks, how often is cabinet rarity considered when releasing a game on the Monday Mystery Game? For the Monday Mystery Game, it sounds like you attempt to use correct cabinets for releases. Are original deluxe game cabinets something the arcade attempts to obtain?
Like when we opened the arcade, the philosophy was get the games on the floor as quick as possible. And now I'd say about 70%, maybe even higher than that, are all in original dedicated cabinets. There was so many games that were just in conversion cabinets. They were only released as kits, and there isn't one. There's just not a specific dedicated cabinet that artwork was made for. Especially in Japan, like a lot of the games just came up. You put them in any candy cabinet, and there isn't even legitimate artwork. Like there's not traditional marquees for an upright cabinet. So we do our absolute best to make sure that the games end up in the right cabinet. And there's so many games on the arcade right now that are in. There's games that are in 2-in-1s. We've got proper dedicated cabinets in the vaults that once we have space, we can separate all those. Like I think about both the Dungeons and Dragons games. It's in a 4-player cabinet. I believe it's either in a Midway or a Konami. I think it's in a Konami cabinet. But we have 2 dedicated big blue cabinets to put each of those games in with original marquees, and that's the ultimate goal. When Monday comes around, it's a different story. It's like depending on the game, depending on if it's a game that we want to take the time to do a full cabinet restoration. If it was only in a kit, then we'll just put it in any cabinet. But it's definitely getting harder and harder to find games that fall into the category of where there is an original cabinet that we don't just get it in the original cabinet. Like we can track boards down, and it's just kind of easier to get them all in one in a dedicated cabinet right now. So but it does just so much depend on the game. I'm trying to think of a recent game that had a dedicated cabinet.
I mean, I would say a lot of times like games are kind of put out maybe because you want to play them or you think they're cool. That's probably one of the most important factors. I mean, it's Doc's always saying he loves every single game on the arcade floor. He's not going to put a game that's necessarily he doesn't enjoy out on the play field. So that's definitely an important factor right there. Genre affects things. There's a plethora of things. We don't want to do 4 horizontal shmups in a row. We want to spice it up a little bit, I'd say. Or we could, we also like to keep people on their toes. So it's a good time.
Lately, it's definitely been, especially with the T20 games on hand. We're trying to keep people guessing. We want to make sure that it's so easy, and we've seen it. We've seen players that they're getting complacent. It's like for 8 years we've been putting out just the most ridiculous stuff, and it's still so much fun for me to see everybody think it's going to be something that they know what it's going to be, and then put something just totally wild out there that catches them off guard. Like that's my favorite thing out there. Like when we can have so many players that have played so many games and they're like, what is this thing? Like, what are you showing us today? That's amazing. And it's something that, again, I talk about it often where it's sharing these games means so much to me. And I'm so fortunate to be able to track down all the rare stuff that nobody had ever heard of. And we've been doing that since the very beginning. I remember putting out games like Out Foxies and Yuchi Daisuke-san Chocovator Contact D, stuff that people have never heard of. And then it becomes a game that everybody's just gravitating towards and having a fun time playing.
So would you say, I guess, to just to swing back to what he was specifically asking, and do you think the rarity of the cabinet, how much does that how much weight does that have in your decision? Would you say, or does it have any weight at all, or is it kind of just the mood or the feeling for the day, the week?
Yeah, it's definitely mood. It's definitely sometimes it's just circumstance. It's like this is ready, or I can get this game ready, or we'll have just picked a game up and it's like this is going out on the floor right now. Um, like we put out Maximum Force. Um, I had the board, I had guns for it, I had the marquee, and it was very much I didn't want to build up a cabinet. It was that cabinet's very obtainable, and I like the boards. They're not hard to come by, so we had to wait to get the full cabinet. And there's games like that. There's games that I don't want them on the floor until they're in their proper presentation. Um, some of the times that will hold up a game, but often if I get a dedicated cabinet, it's hard to not get it on the floor soon, just because I want to share it. I want to see people see the artwork and get that full experience.
I guess, I mean, that's always the goal, right? Is to get as close to the original or a dedicated, put the game in the dedicated cabinet. We're not just like, oh, here's, I guess for just argument's sake, here's a Tempest, throw it in a Dynamo. I don't even know if that's possible, if that makes any sense, but like there's always that the drive to try to make it as just original as possible and what it was meant to be, right? Because that's kind of part of the goal in the arcade, is to preserve that history, and it's a nostalgia trip. We want to pretty much bring you straight back to the 80s and early 90s. So yeah, definitely try to strive for that all the time. Hope that answered your question, Lava Being. But did you want to go over? I know there's a lot of questions in the chat, guys. We'll try to get to a bunch of them as much as possible. But we did want to talk about a couple of things, and we'll be doing these, hopefully somewhat frequently in the near future. We kind of just needed to get this one podcast to maybe start a good habit of yeah, no problem, man. Of course. Thanks for tuning in. But did you want to talk about that thing that you wanted to maybe brush over, maybe give people a nice little deep dive in case they missed that Monday mystery stream?
Yeah, we've had a lot of people asking about the horizontal Kubert cubes. And we had a big Facebook write-up about that. One of our longest write-ups in quite a while. It took quite a bit to write that thing up. It was a 7-year adventure, I guess, in tracking this cabinet down, and lot of ups, even a lot of downs on this one. It was a very tough acquisition. We just took it to Pinball Expo. We had people. There's a few people that we knew that would come up, and they. Everybody kind of looks at it and is like, something's not right here, and it's to me one of the great mysteries of the arcade. It's so much. This whole cabinet has so much mystery around it. It's just a fun cabinet to talk about. The brief synopsis versus the hour-long iteration of the story that we had on the Monday Mystery Game launch. Um, we were working on doing a restoration on Cuber Cubes to launch on the arcade floor. The monitor in Cuber Cubes, the original launch that everybody knew, was vertical. And Master Tech Doug Fox was doing a house call one day. In the basement of this house, he saw a Cuber Cubes right at the same time. It didn't work. He brought the board. He was like, hey, we're going to test the wiring in your cabinet, make sure it all works. And lo and behold, as soon as he plugged it in, I noticed that the monitor was rotated. And Doug was like, oh, maybe it's a dip switch or something. And it's like, no. They've never done monitor orientation on dip switch in a Gottlieb game. This was something very unique. And the artwork was different. The title screen was different. And long story short, we talked to Jeff Lee, the artist on Cuber Cubes. He was unaware of such a thing. We talked to the owner of the cabinet, and at the time they weren't interested in selling it. A bunch of things had happened, and we lost the contact information, and literally years had gone by, and we had to get the phone numbers, the phone records from Master Tech Doug Fox's phone, track down what day he texted me that picture of the cabinet, and then went to the day before on his phone records, found out what day he had talked to the people, got all the phone numbers. They sent us like a 70-page document of all Doug's phone numbers that he had called over that month. And we managed to track down the owner, talked to him. They were very open to discussing selling it. Then all the craziness happened when the places were shutting down. They didn't want to have anybody out there. We managed to talk to them through that. They ended up coming out to the arcade 2 years later. So then after we were talking with them, we were calling them. We landed on a deal. We were very excited. Finally, after close to 7 years, to be getting this machine here, to see all of the ins and outs and what are all the differences between this rare horizontal version and the standard vertical version of Cuber Cubes. And then the gentleman unfortunately passed away. So we had to basically talk with his family, and he had already told them about selling us a cabinet. Worked out the deal, and it was so close to us losing this game and never being able to find it. And it was one of those where most people, Doug was looking at it. He didn't even know that it was a different game. Just thought it was a Cuber Cubes. This is something that would have been lost into obscurity. Maybe after he had passed, if the family decided to sell it, maybe the right person would have found it. Or it would have just stayed in their basement and just kind of never come out to the public eye. We've talked to everybody at Gottlieb that we know. Nobody's got any information on it. You can see there, Neil Bernstein. We talked to him. He was the lead programmer. We talked to Jeff Lee. Talked to David Thiel. We talked to Tom Malinowski. Tom Malinowski also worked on Argus and Three Stooges. He didn't even know that he was credited in this game. So it's just kind of one of those giant question marks. A lot of fun to wonder and kind of come up with hypotheses of how did this game get to be? Was it a prototype of a conversion for horizontal cabinets from Gottlieb? Was it a proof of concept for the home console version? It's so hard to say, but very happy to have it here, part of the collection. And it's one of those where this was really one of those things that I was so excited to share this one with everybody. And it was such, again, it was just an adventure getting it here. And we've had so many crazy things happen. We've done so many acquisition of games. stuff like Tattooed Assassins and um, Quake. The Quakes. Tom was. You remember when we went to go get Quake?
That was a day. That was a
Uh,
day.
The fact all these things lining up to get these games here. There's so much history and so many stories. Um, it's so crazy. We had Bob Burnham out here uh, and Drew, and we were doing a big tour of the arcade and showing them off a lot of the cabinets. They wanted to hear a lot of the history of it. And there's just dozens and dozens and dozens of games here that have such interesting stories about how they ended up here. And it's unfortunate that we aren't able to share all those on a more regular basis. It's one of those where for me, I often think of like, man, I should go down on a Saturday and just do like a tour or something. And I think we were walking around for 3 hours, and it's like we just covered maybe 4 or 5 games.
Oh,
it was
this
like,
past Saturday?
yeah.
That was crazy.
So
Speaking
maybe
of
that's
Quake,
something we'll do.
I've got the interviews on my computer that we're looking to do something with. But that guy was super interesting. I
Yeah.
forgot his name. I mean, that's a cool story in of itself too. Like, there's people are always asking like, "Oh, how do you guys get games nowadays?" And it's like, back in, well, I mean, I'm just speaking from what I assume. Like, you were uh, having to do a little more, put a little more effort in like going out and asking people about what they have for sale, or maybe I imagine the amount of warehouse runs you were doing at least on a monthly basis. But now people are kind of coming out to us, like the Quake guy. This kind of just obviously this was a 7-year long acquisition right here, but sometimes it kind of just all falls into place. We're big enough to where people know and respect what we're trying to do here with the preservation and the museum like environment that we try to uphold with the arcade games and stuff, and obviously allow them to the public. And sometimes they're not very nice to the games, but do our best to to shield them and make sure they're cool and good for everyone to enjoy. But yeah, maybe we can cue something up next time for the Quake video, because that one was really cool. That was in the UP of Michigan. I mean, that was like at least a 12-hour drive for Doc and I, and then there for about an hour or so. I think we visited like an old movie theater or something like that. I forget why, but that was crazy. It was
Yeah,
cool.
he said that movie theater had a bunch of cool games in it, and it was on the way back. So
Yeah, no, I mean, we were just, might as well. And it was beautiful up there in the UPs, right on the lake. And he was just a really cool. And it's just so weird. Like, there's, 300 million people or something like that in the U.S. And the arcade is the arcade scene is so niche. It's just so, like, you pass a billion houses a day. Like, any of those houses could have, like, the most rare game ever. And it's just like he's like just a normal dude. It's just like he just used to, I think he owned a coin op arcade in the area or something like that. Maybe it closed down, or maybe he was doing tech work on stuff like that. But how did that end up there? It's just so, so crazy.
well, and you think about it, that one was Lumbo seeing a host on a YouTube video, on a 3-year-old
Yeah.
YouTube video.
Actually, let me see if I could pull that up. But go on.
It
Pull up
was
the comment, that is.
the unbelievable amount of things that had to line up for us to see this. I don't go check our YouTube comments ever. And
Sweetwater.
this was on a 3-year-old video. Lumbo just happened to look at it. And Wake, there was maybe 20 of them made. There's maybe 3 of them left in the world. And the day before, somebody showed one, and I was all like, oh, I missed a Quake cabinet. I was all down on myself. I'm like, I must not be looking hard enough. I didn't see anybody post anything about a Quake cabinet. it either had to be a private deal or something. And it's hard. It's like we want to share all these games. This is going into a private collection. Great for them. Like, understandable. People want this stuff for their private collections and stuff. But it was hard. And Lumbo messages me the next day and he's like, "Oh, did you see that guy with a Quake cabinet?" It's like, "Yeah, you got a Quake cabinet. Yeah, it was great. Good for him." He's like, no, on our YouTube video, they want to give you a Quake cabinet. And I was like, there's no way. I'm like, that must have been the guy. And that instantly made me more like it was in my court and I lost it. I had the opportunity. And then I looked at it. He's like, no, this was posted yesterday. And it was just like, wait, what? And we, again, messaged the guy. The guy had no contact information. So I was posting on his YouTube videos. And I'm like, please get in touch with me. And he did. And he's like, yeah, it's sitting here. It's been sitting here for the longest time. Come get it. And it was just like so often. It's so fortuitous for us that everything just happens to line up. Stuff like Tattoo Assassins, Primal Rage 2, they just end up here. And it's an amazing thing. But some of them come right to us. Some of them we have to hunt for. So you can only wonder what is sitting in a warehouse somewhere that it could be the coolest thing in the world that nobody's ever seen. And, you know, I remember one time it was me, Jeremy Fox from Prince Arcades, and Uday Kumra of the Headless Horseman, who unfortunately has yet to open, which everybody should bump Uday Kumra over at the Headless Horseman and tell him to get his arcade open. And we were driving back. We were coming from Jonathan and Troy's, and we were like, you never know where these games are. They're just, oh, there it is. Great video. I have Quake Arcade in storage. I want to.
2 years ago.
How insane was that?
Yeah, really, really random.
But me, Jeremy, and Uday driving back from Mount Zion, and I'm like, you know, we should just be dialing phone numbers and asking people. So the whole 3-hour trip back, we're just random dialing and being like, "Oh, I saw you at that arcade game. Were you looking to sell it?" And we didn't get anything. We were laughing though, having a great time, because like the thought at the time was like, maybe we're gonna call this person. They're like, "Oh yeah, I got that original Street Fighter 1 with the punch pads. That's just sitting in the garage. You want it?" Don't know how you knew that we had it, but it's crazy. Yeah, the next insane story is probably just around the corner. So
yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's there's always. I mean, just when we got Starjacker. I mean, that's in my most recent memory. Like, there's some of these guys have just absolutely insane stories. It was the Wild West back in the day, man. How some of these arcades operated, and just like because it was like such a, it was booming. It was the business, you know. It was the cool thing to do back in the day. It was the cash grab, whatever you want to call it. So all sorts of, you know, people were involved in the scene, and now it's obviously dialed back, a little more niche for the super fans that keep it alive and going. And obviously, you know, the casual players that come out on a weekly basis, they just kind of want to dive back in and see what it was like, you know, trying to bring that nostalgia trip, get that nostalgia trip going. Excuse me, but yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff.
yeah, it's who knows what we'll get next. It's one of those, again, you're talking about game number 1000. There's been so many incredible acquisitions already. It's got to be something of the highest caliber, because
Oh yeah,
it's going to be a milestone to remember. So, let's see, do we have any other questions?
question. Yeah, we can circle back to Twitch chat, see if we got some stuff. Hmm. All right.
Vinny of Destruction say it's so sad knowing how many rare games were destroyed and converted to 3D golf. Yeah, it's even that. I remember getting a call from Jeremy, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this game Blasted?" And I'm like, or Blaster, and I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard of it." I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Oh, I got somebody that has one, and they're looking at they want it converted to a 60-in-1." And I'm like, "Is it the a round plastic Duramold cabinet?" Like, no. And it's like, it's a wooden cabinet? And he's like, yeah. And it's like, there's one. There is one wooden blaster cabinet known to exist. And it's like the holy grail of holy grails. And this is in some random person's possession. And they're just about to, had they given it to anybody else, that would have been gone. It would have been just converted out and sides would have been painted over and they would have been gone. It's even as fortunate as we are, we see that stuff has happened. We talk to so many industry people. I was talking to guys like Scott Pekulski and Mark. Just everybody has those stories about how even at the developer companies, Williams Bally Midway and Konami and Gottlieb, they had so much stuff and no place for it. It just was like, yeah, throw all this stuff out. We need the space. it's heart wrenching to hear those stories, but it's at the same time it's understandable. The companies are so close to it. I look at we had a stack of Spectre Files flyers, and it was like, they're kind of beat up. I'll just throw those away. We'll print more if we need them. But that's the stuff people lose their minds for. It's like if you found a stack of Joust flyers now, people would be like, oh, let me get one, let me get one. And it's just having to, that moment kind of made me realize that we can't do that doing what we do. We've had games like Raiders Run, we've had Fish in a Barrel that we've worked on, and we've got a prototype cabinet, and then it's kind of like, what do we do with this thing? Let's break it down and we need that monitor for this, and it's like, no, we can't do that. The stuff that we're building is our test cabinets, and that's as good as the horizontal Kubert cubes to a future generation. So we've got to be very mindful of it and not have us do the same things that other companies have done in the past. It's always got to be preservation, but it's tough because there's only a finite amount of space that we have. So,
Hey, by the way, is asking our opinions on Unity. For those of you that don't know, it's the program we use to that we've been using to create Dark Presence, and more specifically than Unity, we use a game engine called UFE, or Ultimate Fighting Game Engine. And I mean, I personally think Unity's great. It's pretty beginner friendly, I suppose, but maybe that's my bias talking because it's kind of hard to remember when, or my thoughts on the barrier to entry it is to, like, game development when I first started working here. And but it's great. It's super flexible. Like the community is outstanding in terms of like the help we've received, especially from the UFE guys. They really hooked it up, and I know we're working pretty close with us at least a few years back, and I think we're actually in talks with them now. And it's pretty. I mean, YouTube's a heck of a drug, right? Like, pretty much everything that I've learned was through that, and you could pick up pretty much anything. You want to, add a streak to a weapon, or you're looking how to anything from that to, changing a shader or creating a material or resetting your window configuration, something as basic as that. These are all questions I've had learning how to use the program, and I really enjoy it. I wouldn't mind using it again for the next project that we would do. Obviously, we'll use whatever fits our needs the best, but I think Unity's awesome. I know they just had the big old thing about how you sell X amount of copies or something like that. I wasn't too in tune with it because we're not necessarily there yet. So they've been getting a lot of flack, but I think it's a pretty great program, and it's free to use. Like, that's pretty crazy too, right? At least the base program itself. So yeah, I like it.
It's one of those where they're a business too. Everybody's got to get their cut, and I can guarantee you, so many of the places, there's so many more gaming companies because the point of entry has become so much easier with software like Unity. it's it's only fair. It's like they're making it so people can create arcade game or create video games. We had always used proprietary engines for Dark Presence, and it was n- so much harder using something proprietary in a lot of senses. Just it you could get it. Most of our guys got into Unity. It's still a learning process, but it is much more accessible. We were done with Spectre files very quickly, which was also done in Unity, and I think it's a great piece of it's a great asset. It's so beneficial and much more open. And again, you've got setups like Ufe that they take all of that guesswork out. They have a better framework and foundation to them for designers to use to get into putting that artwork and getting in their mechanics and everything. So I think Unity is excellent.
Yeah, the publishing thing they got a pretty big scare from their community. And hey, by the way, I mentioned Doc pretty much covered it though. Let's see, Lumbo just tuning in. How's it going, man?
Shoutouts to Lumbo. That guy played Titan in Dark Presence.
We actually were just talking about you helping us get Quake to the arcade, Lumbo. So I guess you just missed that. Alrighty.
Is there any Facebook chatter going on?
Oh yeah, let me go ahead and pop over here. Any thoughts on a Dark Presence movie from Garo Gala? I mean, there's a Dark Presence documentary coming out. A movie?
I'd have to see if Craig would want to direct that. It would be it's kind of written there. I did a screenplay for a Dark Presence movie long ago. That's been kind of sitting in the wings. But yeah, it's we just want to get the game done first off. We had so many people asking about the Ghost Lord and the Quest for Dark Presence from the Year of the Phoenix while we were at Pinball Expo, and I know Craig has been a little quiet lately. He's had a lot of things going on. He's got a lot of stuff to edit.
I think he just did a 48-hour, 24-hour film festival. His crew was just in
48
that.
hour.
So they do that every single year, and no, they always knock it out of the park. So
Yeah, it's I can't wait to see what they do this year. The last one, they did really good. They did an excellent short with it, so it was really awesome. But yeah, I appreciate. I've had so many people telling me that they put in towards their Kickstarter, and full clarification, that's not our Kickstarter. That's Craig's Kickstarter in the Year of the Phoenix. Dark Presence was the content of it, but it's not a Galloping Ghost presentation by any means. But Craig has done so much filming and gotten the entire story. I think we shot my interview alone was like 60 some hours over, it was just months. Like they had rearranged my whole office and stuff. It was amazing, amazing interviews. It's with all of the interviews. We've been doing a lot more interviews lately, and such great questions, and just can't wait to see what he does with it.
I guess sticking on the topic of Dark Presence, the age-old question, the a timeline for Dark Presence here. What are you thinking?
When it's coming out, I would say first half of 2024.
First half, okay. That would be that would be insane. We're making pretty good strides with the current programmer right now, so that's really, really cool. It's always good hearing good news with him, and yeah.
Lumbo's right. Let's say soon.
Yeah.
Ghosty Devil, thank you so much for gifting those subs.
Get some who knows in the chat.
Jedi, sending 101 bits our way. Thank you for that.
Chloe wants to know about more gamer profiles for GGA YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's those were so much fun to do. We've been switching everything over. I'm switching to a new computer, so I've been going through all of the files on my computer, and I just found all of those game player profiles, and there's a lot of them I've almost all but forgot about, and some great ones, and there's so many more players now that we should be talking to. It's really just a time thing. I would love to do it. But again, it's been 2 years since we've been able to get a podcast together, and we're still struggling to get a stream a week outside of the Monday Mystery stream. Like, we want to do it all. It's just there's not enough hours in the day. So we're working on it, though. We're working on it. We would love to do more. There's so many great player stories to tell and share and get everybody connected within the community. So we'd love to do it.
Sequel to Deathstalkers, The Spectre Files.
You know, I would love it. I would love to do it. I've talked with Brian about it. I know having Craig around, he is incredibly excited to do a sequel.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to him. I just coincidentally always see Craig at the gym, Galloping Ghost Gamma, and last time we were there, he was mentioning it to me, and I'm all like, wow, that would actually be so cool for him and Brian and us to kind of collab on Spectre Files Part 2. Available on Steam. Spectre Files 1 is available on Steam, by the way. There actually is a direct link right below our Twitch channel right there. But
coming up on Halloween, if anybody wants to stream Spectre Files of Deathstalkers, definitely stream it here on Twitch or Facebook.
I actually think someone tagged us on a post today on Facebook, Stevie Dubs. I think he might be doing
Stevie Dubs?
Yeah, I think he might be doing a Spectre Files stream.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to sit in on the stream chat, and maybe I can get Brian in there, and we can make some great stream content. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I always say, like, it's an insanely good viewer-based game. Like, if you just kind of want a chill, laid back, you know, especially during spooky season, right? Everyone grab a coffee, a beer, whatever, and just kind of have fun. On the PC port, you aren't pressed for time, so you can, like, kind of just chill, kind of diagnose the situation, pick the proper choice, and or have Twitch chat just take a vote. You know, dealer's choice on that one, but really, really good stream game, I would say. I mean, we did one with Piscina, I think. Did we stream that one when it first came out on PC? And that was really, really fun.
I think we did. You know, there's so much stuff that we've done, and it's like, oh, we'll edit that up, and then we'll put it out, and then we never get to edit it. Like, there's I don't know if the Pacino one was live or not.
You just got to be there, man. Follow us on our socials. You got to be there.
That's the way to do it. Don't
Yeah.
miss out.
Jedi Killer is saying, so he's the one that asked about the Spectre Files sequel, is asking or mentioned that apparently he played it with Brian at Free Play Florida last year during his talking panel, which is totally cool. I mean, being able to play a game with the dev himself, that's got to be an awesome experience. And I wonder if Brian actually remembers how to, like, do you know if he was directly involved in the mapping of the choices, and or was
So he
Or if he
knows
remembers
the
that?
video in and out.
Sure.
The funny thing was, he gave me the first test copy, and he's like, "Can your guys play test this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll jump on it. Do you have a map of what everything is? I'll test everything." And he's like, "There's not a map. Just figure it out." And that was tough because I had to check every sequence and every reactionary sequence, and there's a few random choice stuff. Made it a chore to play test that game, and I had so much fun doing it though, and it's been so on my mind lately. I was at Pinball Expo. I was over by Brian's booth, and he's got the miniature of the Der Hatchet Manor. And oh man, that is an amazing thing to see. And I don't know, maybe he'd let us buy it from him and display it here one day next to the cabinet. That's the exact same stuff that we would love to see in a museum. Because as much as I've played that game, I would love to see a sequel to it. And even while we were testing it, it was like, oh, we could do this. And Brian, of course, played Ed Spector. And my initial thought is like, hey, Brian, I would love to get to play the Ed Spector's protege and kind of take that mantle up. That would be an amazing thing. I know Brian's got other stories, and I know Craig was instantly like coming up with ideas, and he's like, oh, it should be like this, it should be like this.
Yeah. Dude, the work that we've seen from Craig so far, I bet he could do some pretty sick stuff with that. So I'm actually, the more we talk about it, the more hype I'd be. And working on that game was super fun too. The little I did towards the end, I mixed some of the music, and I think I added the for the PC port, very, very small stuff. I'm such a junior when it comes to this dev work, but I leave the big stuff to the head honchos, but the little mouse turned into a magnifying glass wherever you click, so I was kind of proud of that. And some, track mode stuff, but that was really, really fun.
I think we have to update the credits, and I'm working on a patch. We got to do subtitles for it still. We haven't launched that. So yeah, there's still more to come on the original Spectre Files. It's been a bit since we've done any updates for it, but there's things to do. There's things to do.
We have a question from Ghostly Dev, aka Mr. Tim, Mr. Foley, coming at you with a, do you have pictures from NARC Developers Day? I would love to see those.
Yeah, I do. Tim had turned me on to a Facebook post, both of us huge NARC fans, about a developer jacket that was sold at Pinball Expo. He sent it to me, and oh my goodness, I could not believe I didn't see that there at the show. And it would be absolutely amazing to get one of those jackets. So I appreciate it. Huge thanks, Tim, for sending me that. It's a crazy chase that maybe, hopefully, possibly one day we'll be able to show that off. But yes, I do have pictures from the NARC Developers Day. I don't know if I ever made that post about about the NARC Developers Day because there's a lot of pictures from it. I was very adamant that a lot of pictures be taken. You had George Petro there. You had Eugene Jarvis, Joshua. You had Mark Lafredo. That was an unbelievable. Warren Davis was there. Just all the greats from Midway, and what an amazing event that was. Still one of my favorite events that we've ever done at the arcade.
We have Stephen Lucas and Tom Roth joining us on the Facebook side. What's up, guys? Good to see you. Actually, both over at the Pinball Expo weekend. Stephen Lucas, obviously our newest Pinball Expo arcade tournament champion.
The champ.
Came by Saturday night flaunting that big old belt.
Mm-hmm. That's the way to do it. If you've got the belts, you can show them off. They're meant to be shown off. I'm seeing in the Twitch chat, Lobster One saying, as a musician myself, how did you record the tracks for Dark Presence, in-house or an external studio? So currently, the tracks that you're hearing are stuff that I've written. We have a little bit of a recording problem here. Just because if I'm recording a track, it all but never gets done. So I've been sending them out to a studio, Armadillo Studio, to get them recorded and mixed and mastered and turned around quick. And you know, it's funny. I've listened to them. I'm just loving their recordings, but I'm already starting to hear like, oh, maybe one more get back and guitar track on that. So I don't know. It's a blend of all of it. Jim has been doing music on Dark Presence for the longest time too. So it's the collaborative effort. But lately I've been doing all. I think now there's probably only one or two tracks that I haven't written. But the recording is kind of all over the place. So. But it's definitely got to get completed soon. So you'll be hearing some new tracks soon on the Monday Mystery Game show. So look forward to that.
More bongos. If there was a character in Dark Presence that would have bongos as part of their theme, that's already so out of place. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
At first thought it would be Lumbo, but it's not Lumbo in the game. It's Titan.
If there was bongos in there, you know, I bet I could fit some bongos into Kincaid's theme, his track. I bet I could.
Oh, next swap meet? I think there's actually something in the works.
There actually is.
Yeah.
I think we have a date planned for.
Can we announce it?
Sure.
Tentatively, we are looking at. Oh, where are we?
I think it's November 18th.
November 18th is the current tentative swap meets. I actually just made the arcade schedule for the 5th through the 11th, so probably going to be solidified sometime next week. When we get, because as in all things, I think sometimes people might forget that the arcade is the 365 business. We're out doing an event somewhere else, and we still have the world's largest arcade to run back at home, right? So we need to make sure, and we're running on not a skeleton crew, but it's tight knit, and we need to make sure, all of our.
You have to also add that there's 7 other businesses.
Yeah, there's a couple things going on. So, when we say tentative, it is tentative, but hopefully tomorrow we'll have a more solid answer when we get the schedule going, and we're able to do it up for you guys, because I know you guys are all really, really excited to. It's always a good time, right? There's always some really, really cool stuff. I know There's one vendor that sells bead art. Everyone's always asking about bead art, so hopefully all the regulars come through and you guys can buy and trade or whatever all the cool stuff, and then of course head down to the arcade.
Shout outs to player WM86 and King and H2O and Worminator. Thank you all for being here. Going on with our podcast. You know, it's the craziest thing. Even for doing this, it was kind of like, well, we announced it. We got to do it. And day to day, the days you hit the ground running and it's like, oh, we got to do that podcast at 2:00. We said we were going to do it. We don't want to cancel it. So often we'll have stuff on the schedule, and then as it gets closer, it'll be like, do we move that? Do we change dates? Do we push it back? And it's tough. We want to do so much, but again, there's only so many of us, so many hours in the day, only 7 days in the week. They're just. Oh, go on.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna respond. I would love more special guests, and like we said, guys, this is kind of just we just had to do it. You know, it's like when you're trying to start a habit to go to the gym or something like that. You just got to rip it off like a Band-Aid. I miss Pete too. Hey, by the way, he was a super integral part, and I think hopefully we'll be seeing Pete in the near future. Maybe at the swap meet. You know, he always used to run those. We'll hit him up and see if he wants to come hang out and maybe do a table and say hi to everyone. I think the last time we saw Pete was at the anniversary on August 13th. So, dude, Pete. But he's doing God's work at NRS, working hard night and day on MK1. So that's pretty cool too, I suppose.
The new patch just dropped.
It just dropped. It's hot.
Time for another tournament on the cabinet.
Yeah, that was a cool event. Someone actually asked earlier about a tournament area for stuff like that, and I think Doc had mentioned something about a LAN center and 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th floors of the arcade or some craziness. But yeah, I mean, definitely things we want to be able to expand into, you know, all sorts of video game ventures. So we'll see. The Dad Nomad is Smoke now meta. He actually got hit by a nerf, a small damage nerf, but
Did he?
yeah, he did. And
wow.
I don't know. It was whatever NRS, you know, trust Paulo's process, I suppose. We'll see how it goes. But he had a pretty good showing at the latest major tournament, ECT, on the East Coast. So his stock is actually high. I'm not on huge blast, not on like big blast, but small blast. And maybe I was going a little too hard on the downplaying. But that's just my character. I like to downplay. I got the excuses lined up. Let's see.
Dubs Club asking about the hardware on the MK1 cabinet. That is running on a PlayStation 5. We'll make sure that it is updated as the patches come out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just connect it to the Wi-Fi real quick.
Don't know how long the King asking about like the MK11 cabinet and how that's not on the arcade floor. Yeah, it's a space issue. We've got an MK9 cabinet, MKX, MK11, and an MK1 cabinet. So MK1 is there for now. Make sure you're coming out because it might only be there for a week. So it's hard to have a game that's available on console on the arcade floor now when so much space is such the commodity. So it's like everybody can play MK1 at their house, but not everybody can play a game like Warp, and people want to set scores in it. So it's like we got to have Warp on the floor. MK1 would have to come back off. So it's one of those. It's one of those balances. We got it there now. Get out to the arcade, play it, enjoy it, and then wait till the next thing opens up where we've got some space and we can have all those cabinets back on the floor.
Yeah.
We've been talking about doing an event center down at the CVS building.
Ooh, okay. There it is. There it
Just throwing
is.
that out there.
Yeah, just throwing that out there.
Was I not supposed to say that?
That's a decent amount of space over there. Nah, I mean that's cool. Hype it up. Hype it up. Yeah, I mean, hey, by the way, there, we want to make sure we're focusing on the our original arcade. That's kind of the theme and the direction we're going. And the console arcade cabinets, they definitely have a place. Obviously, there's a decent amount of hype over MK1. The way I see it, it's kind of like a McRib. Come out, eat it, play it while you can, and then it'll leave for a little bit, but you might see it pop up here and there. And same thing with the KI, all the CACs, the console arcade cabinets. Like Doc had mentioned, we have a bunch of MK1s, maybe an Injustice one. I don't know if we still have that. We're an NRS household, so we're definitely we play those, and that I assume somewhat persuades or gives some sort of bias to Doc as to what he wants to build up for an arcade cabinet, what we're playing or having fun with. So you will probably see them back. Maybe not at the arcade.
Vinny asked if he says Street Fighter 6. Would we do a console cabinet for Street Fighter 6? So there are talks of an actual arcade release of Street Fighter 6. So we'll just wait for that. It took us a long time to get Street Fighter 5, but it is here. So nothing beats an arcade version.
Were they talking about, was Namco talking about doing Tekken 8 arcade port? Is that a thing?
Yeah, Namco's been pretty much with it. They usually do an arcade version. I haven't been following it. Not the deepest of Tekken fan.
Yeah,
but,
not a 3D guy myself.
Nah, but it wouldn't surprise me. Namco is one of those companies that they like having their roots in the arcade scene, and they kind of stick with it. So that's always awesome. It would make me consider getting it just because they would put it out. And if they're supporting the arcade community like that, you got to be there and pick it up.
Yeah, King Cam, what were you saying about the Cavs being available on the arcade floor? Like, I mean, when I first started coming to the arcade in like 2010, 2011, like it's just like a different vibe at the arcade, and you even see it now. And I see it. JP is up front, and maybe on a Saturday, it's me and him. He's taking a little break, walking around, and he sees someone playing MK1, and he's like, "Hey, you want to play?" And they're like, "Yeah," and they go at it for a couple rounds, and that's kind of how it was in the what I assume. You place your quarter on the player 2 side back in the day. You're a little more familiar with the game, so you have a little confidence. You played a little bit at home. You walk up, puff your chest out, and see how you hold up against the local competition, and it's cool to be able to do that. I guess the important thing for that stuff is to make sure when you do something like that, or a LAN center, you make it so it's a little. You need a reason to go out to play a game you can play at home at the arcade, and luckily the arcade, just the whole environment is and the atmosphere is different, and people, it's a little more local, a little more personable. The scene at the arcade is so awesome that you can just do things like that. Everyone's like really friendly and stuff. So just walk up to someone, ask for some games, and who knows, you might make Team GGA.
A lot of people asking about Team GGA, when you guys are going to be, what tournaments are you going to? And we know Shady and Jeremiah and Phil and Wafflez are been doing great in the tournament scene so far. McCuddy,
I haven't. Well,
I haven't even. You've been making the rest of the team good.
I mean, yeah. Right now I'm kind of I'm laying low, trying to pace myself. I still really do enjoy the game. There's a hint of forcefulness I feel and having to play and stuff because smoke's in it. But I love it anyways, so that's just like a hint. It's fine. I'm not gonna like if I'm, you know, not feeling it. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I gotta play, that type of thing because I really want to enjoy the game and stuff. But yeah, just being able to give the guys the matchup experience they need, which it's cool. You can find kind of satisfaction in that. I know Shady's always like, if I ever find a smoke on Combat League, or I know he's at least 1-0 against a smoke in tournament. That's cool to see that the guys are they know their stuff, and that's because of me.
It is the greatest MK9 smoke player of all time.
Man, I would. So many guys on Twitter are talking about coming out to Frosty Faustings, which is the next Chicago. It's not the next tournament. It is the next Chicago tournament though. So they have Frosty Faustings in January, Combo Breaker in May. Frosty Faustings used to be like in the back of an arcade at Nickel City, and now it's now it's basically the size of the Renaissance. If you were at Pinball Expo, like that is a huge event now. Anyway, a lot of the MK9 OGs are coming out, and once we get closer to the event, I would definitely want to hit them up, and I'm excited to. I'm such a sucker for that game, man, and so are so many other people too. It's once been said that it's the third strike of Mortal Kombat, so I think it'll live for a long time. It's got a really, really strong small scene. Bad news to Cruz. I doubt it, but I would love to play you next time you're out here, man. It depends on the game, Obviously, okay, yeah, you could, it's up in the air if it's maybe Mortal Kombat 3 or something like that, but MK9 is the third strike of MK, Shady. Sorry if I misspoke.
All right. Any final questions we should grab?
Looking through the chat, I'm sure because you asked, there's going to be a billion of them coming, but we do got to probably get out of here.
Orlando asking any hints for Halloween Monday mystery unveil? Nope. Any other questions for
hints? That's usually end stream on the dot as soon as you ask that question. So
put them all in the cornfields. Worminator asking, do you feel like there is enough interest in like a monthly 80s night with old music, blacklight, and old game tournaments? So for me, I am not an 80s music person. I am not a blacklights person. And then without that, you've got basically just the arcade. So let's do that every day. Bad news asking about sit-down power drift and sit-down outrun. Can this happen? It can. We have both in the vaults. I think we've mentioned that in the past before.
Power drift is awesome. Does it by any chance almost drive for you, though? It's kind of got that feeling, like, where you can just kind of hold your hand, like, take your hands off the steering wheel, and then the game almost feels like it's on some sort of, like, handicap, like Mario Kart handicap auto drive.
It will get you through it, but if you're getting a good time, you need to be on point with those turns.
Okay, that was actually a game in the Pinball Expo tournament. So it's interesting that you mentioned that.
Power Drive was there at Pinball Expo, but it wasn't a tournament game.
It wasn't a tournament game. Oh, that's my bad.
No. Orlando asking about a night walk around. We're trying. It's on the list. Chicken nugget enthusiast. Not a dislike for black lights, but it's just like they're cool. To me, it's not like an 80s thing though. It's like the aesthetics of an arcade. I see so many people doing the blacklit carpet and the blacklight post. That stuff's awesome, but I don't know. I don't like the nostalgia side to it. It's not nostalgic to me. It's just it's a cool thing regardless of the era. And it has its place. But that's just me. I know a lot of people love it. So to each their own.
All right, so should we wrap it up then?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap it up. We're going to be doing more. We'll probably set a tentative date soon for the next podcast. And, maybe we'll do some short streams, just pop on, chat with everybody for a bit. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We've got two things. We got the swap meet coming up for sure. We've got I haven't mentioned this anywhere else. We've got a Godzilla, a kaiju pop-up probably happening at Productions the following week of the swap meet. So I want to see who in this area is a Godzilla fan and a fan of the arcade. If you're tagging the arcade and me and Godzilla on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, let me see, because we've got something really special, but I got to see who's the biggest Godzilla fan. And I need some posts that are going to kind of be awesome. So make some posts. Let me know who's out there. You got to be local because you got to be here for it. So let's hear it. Give me some stuff to look for on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and get out there and do that. And there's a cool prize on the line. So
sounds like we'll give you guys a reminder maybe on Monday to do that stuff. That's another, I believe, November thing, possibly. Do we have a date on that? The pop-up?
The pop-up, I believe, is the 25th.
The 25th? Okay, cool.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we are going to wrap it up. Thank you all for being here. Worminator, I remember. I have not forgotten, man. Fire Rodan and Vinny Destruction and Bad News to Cruise, Orlando, Chicken Nugget Enthusiast, Cracker Jack. Hey, by the way, Tracy, King, everybody, thank you all so much for joining us. Huge thanks to the man himself, Mr. GGA Tommy Wafflez, for all he does. Dubs Club, Worminator, thank you all. Gabe. Until next time, thanks everybody. This is Doc Mack from the Galloping Ghost Arcade. We hope to see you around the arcade soon. Thanks a lot, everybody.
See you guys on Monday. Follow the stream every single Monday, 5 o'clock p.m. Central, Monday Mystery. We'll keep you guys posted on the next pod, maybe on Monday. Catch you guys later. Thank you much.
Thanks, guys.